It's your duty as a custodian of your country to look after them resources for your kids. So, it's not traditional time anymore. We're here, we've been impacted by colonisation, our population's exploded. But we need to have a say because they're our resources and we need to be looking after them.
Contemporary fisheries management really is around the stock assessment side of things and monitoring. That's having an understanding of what's happening in the fishery. So it may be what catch is being taken out of that particular fishery. It's no different to traditional management. Traditional management, with the conversations that take place in those Aboriginal forums, Aboriginal people talking to each other a lot about, what catch is being undertaken. Has there been a change in that particular catch or stock or catch rate?
Traditional owners generally have a good understanding of what is happening in their fish stocks and systems to help manage them. In our last video, we looked at the factors which affect fish stocks, and we finished by pointing out that fishing mortality was the only factor fisheries managers can control. In this video, we're going to look at how fisheries managers monitor fish stocks and the controls they put in place to manage fisheries. Traditional owners have managed Australia's fisheries for tens of thousands of years. Today, those same fisheries are managed by the state or Commonwealth using harvest strategies. Harvest strategies have three main components: monitoring, stock assessment, and decision rules. So, let's now look at monitoring, which is the first stage of a harvest strategy. It is where we gather information about the fishery. This information tells us certain things about a fish stock, so we call it an indicator. An example of an indicator is fingerling numbers, which indicates how many recruits are coming into the fishery. Traditional owners also use indicators to help them understand how their fish stocks are faring.
On a regular basis, often when we do come fishing, we see the little fingerlings, and they're a good indicator of how healthy the water holes are, which is one way that we gauge how healthy those water holes are.
Fingerling numbers is an important indicator used not only by traditional owners but also fisheries scientists. Other indicators might include stock biomass, catch rates, or average size of fish caught. Fisheries scientists can use a number of indicators to understand the health of a fish stock. This is called a stock assessment. Having a stock assessment allows us to compare the current health of the stock against our management targets. These targets are known as reference points. When Rob fishes, he is also trying to monitor indicators and compare those observations with an understanding of the local fishing grounds.
You've got very small patches. There might be only a patch which is as big as this area here, which has got quite a fair few fish in it.
In effect, Rob is carrying out his own stock assessment. He is comparing the current health of the stock to his own idea of a target reference point. Then he makes decisions about how to manage the stock to achieve his own target reference point.
It's like farming on land, you're farming at the sea as well, in a circulatory sort of motion, so that everywhere gets a spell. So there's that sort of theory that we all have.
The decisions he makes are called decision rules. Contemporary management uses exactly the same process as Rob does. Multiple indicators are used to inform a stock assessment, the health of the stock is assessed, and decisions are put in place to achieve the target reference point. Because we can't control what the fish do, we try and control how much the fishermen take. So, fisheries management decision rules are designed to control fishing mortality. For example, a decision rule in some mud crab fisheries is to use closures, with the length of the closure depending on the health of the stock. Traditional owners have a similar process.
People are talking about all the time, whether fishing's been good, fishing's not been so good, and then decisions are made around that.
This is called a management response, and for contemporary harvest strategies, the final choice about the management response is made by government. Their decision is based on advice from fisheries meetings. For traditional owners, management responses may even be reflected in their spiritual worldview.
There's a range of stories, and some that refer to short-finned eels, like Dreamtime stories about Pithrit the plover, who was he was a fellow who could spear eels left hand and right hand, and painted up with his yellow ochre, and he used to stalk the banks and that of Lake Conda, and then he took too many eels, so he got turned into the bird, which was the plover bird, and that's why the bird's got its spurs on its wings and the yellow musk on its face. Yeah, so all that sort of stuff speaks to our mob's, connection to country and identity and stuff like that. So it's all really important. It's all connected to these species that live in these waterways. Yeah.
Put simply, management responses aim to control fishing mortality. The response affects the catch, and the catch, or fishing mortality, affects the stock. There are two main types of management responses: input controls and output controls. Input controls are limits put on fishing effort and can include fishing gear, season and location. Output controls are restrictions put on the catch and can include quotas, bag limits, size, gender or reproductive state. You might think of these as only contemporary techniques. However, there are many examples of traditional managers using the same techniques.
We always let the little ones go, let the big fat ones go, because they're getting ready for that big journey, and we kept the ones that would be about that long, I suppose, and nice and slender. Not as much fat on those, so better to cook.
The old people didn't specifically go for the breeders, so the males or the bigger females. So that was one way of sustaining the fishery stocks.
For example, with muttonfish or abalone, when we take abalone, we won't go up and sort of go, okay, then we're going to clean out all that wall of abalone. What we'll do is just like I've done out at sea, which is the same principle of what an Indigenous way of doing things is. It's just a core value, is that you'll take a few out of it and then leave it alone, and then come back later and take some more,
The other one is that the seasonal stuff I mentioned, only targeting certain species when the season's right, making sure that they're the healthiest and most abundant. And then the other aspect I also make a connection to is when you've got particular sacred sites that are in the marine estate, where it might be that nobody's allowed to go there, and they're generally not just a site in there's an empty sea country. It's something significant in there. It might be a reef or something.